Well, welcome back to Hillbilly Modeling. We've been working on our M110 Howitzer. That's this one right here by ITALERI, or ITALERI, whichever. Yeah, and it's 1/35th scale. I think this is part 4. So let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. And that would be with the Recoil spade. Now we completed everything in step 5 except for these two small parts here, number 56. And those are the spare track pads that needs to go on the back of the spade. So now the kit parts, kind of rounded off in detail, but that's okay. We can go ahead and use these. And they're supposed to attach to the spade right there. And yeah, there's no bracket or anything. They've got that little molded in, looks like a strap or bracket that's actually on the part. But we're going to go ahead and make some brackets for it. So I think the best thing for us to do is kind of clean these up so that they're in a usable kind of shape. Now the way they molded this, it includes the center link portion of another trackpad. So and it's really not supposed to be there. We're just going to cut down and using a scribing saw here, just to give us a definition there between where the links on either end are supposed to end, and that center section needs to come out. So we're just going to very carefully and skillfully, hopefully skillfully, trim out that little center section there because it's not supposed to be there. Another element that's on here that we don't need is this little strap here. Now, yeah, I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, and I realize that. So we're gonna cease with that operation right there before we hurt ourselves. I'm just going to take a file and we're going to remove that little strap detail. Now that should actually be probably a piece of metal. It's welded onto the Recoil spade. Almost said sprayed. So yeah, we're going to file that down. We also got some ejector pin holes there that we can clean up. And then we'll redefine that little center link in the middle of the shoe, right where we're removing that strap, because that detail will be missing. Just kind of clean these up to make it look like, more like the real thing. Now there's another detail that's missing, and that would be the holes that's right in the ends of our track shoes here for our link pins that the real thing would have. So I'm just using the number 11 craft knife there to kind of get us a starter hole, just a little indentation. I'm not pressing too hard because I don't want to slip and stab myself in the finger. That would be bad. So we'll get us a little divot started there. And then we can select us a drill bit and just put those details in. Now the two holes on the side of the shoe should be a little bit larger, but we're just going to start the holes and make sure that we're kind of center of where those holes need to go. We'll come back later and make these just a little bit larger, which would be more in line with what the shoes would actually look like. Now on both ends, the hole should go all the way through because there's not another shoe connected on either side. So we can just go ahead and drill these holes completely through, kind of add that little bit of extra detail there, something more realistic. So the thing to remember is that these are going to be very visible on the back of that Recoil spade. So I'm going to use a little bit of, to me, extra thin here to kind of blend out the sanding and carving scratches and everything here. Once it's all painted up, I think it's going to look pretty good. So now we can turn our attention to the actual brackets that will hold these into place. So I'm just kind of eyeballing about where the bracket needs to sit on the actual spade there. Now you do want them to be the same on both sides. So kind of take note of that. And what we have here is just a little strip of polystyrene that I trimmed off of a larger sheet. And I think I used it for something else, and this is what's left over. So never throw your scraps away. So for those of you that are interested in what the actual thickness is here, if I can get my caliper set, we'll go ahead and measure it. And it looks to be 0.7 millimeters, so, or 0.27 of an inch. So now we are going to make the bracket just a little bit oversized as far as the length of the pieces go. Of course, we don't need all of that sticking out there. So we'll cut us a piece off, and then we need to cut one end off, which we are going to turn that into the 90-degree corner there on the very end. So to get that 90 degrees, just put a little bit of Tamiya extra thin there. And then we'll grab our tweezers here and just align this up to the very end. Now it doesn't have to go all the way to the end. It just needs to be square with the other part because we'll come back and sand that little connection down and eliminate anything that's kind of hanging over there. So I am just going to use the corner or the end of our steel rule here to make sure we got 90 degrees there. And we'll go ahead and let that dry. Now we're going to make another one for the other side. So as you can see here, we have our part, and it has dried for us, at least well enough that we should be able to sand on it without distorting anything. So I'm going to take care of that little excess on the very end there. Get us a nice smooth transition there. So the way this is going to work is that little 90-degree turn there is going to stand off of the back of the spade there. So we need to have it at the same depth as the webbing on the very end of our spade, that extra support structure there. As you can see, I've trimmed this one down. So all we got to do now is make the other one the same length. So I'm going to go ahead and recheck it. It's always good to be sure than to commit to cement and have it not set correctly. So now I have put a couple of little marks there. I want them to be equal on both sides, so measuring that out and setting a little tick mark is always a good idea. And then we'll just add a little bit of cement here. And we can go ahead and add our part. Now it's okay for the end of it to extend past the end of the actual spade there. We'll come back and trim that off later. We just want to make sure that we have enough room to actually slide our track shoes into place there. And setting right up underneath that bracket, just like I have it, is the one that's going to give us the right amount of space there. So all I got to do is put a little bit of Tamiya extra thin on that little 90-degree turn leg there, cement that into place, and then we can go ahead and put the one on the opposite side. Now once our cement sets up, we can go ahead and trim these nice and flush with the ends of our Recoil spade there. And then we'll come back in with a sanding stick and kind of blend that in. So we need to check our fit. Now it will go in, but it's kind of really tight. So what I'm going to do is on the opposite side, which is the side that comes in contact with the ground on our track shoes there. They have the track pads, and we can just thin it out on that side just by sanding those track pads down a little bit, making the whole shoe assembly a little bit thinner so it'll slide right into our brackets. So we need to check our final fit, and I think we're in good shape here. So I think the brackets are a good addition, and oftentimes these were field modifications, if not a factory piece of equipment. With that said, now we do have some spare track links left over from our AFVClub tracks that we could have used instead of modifying these, but I just wanted to show you what I did to modify them and make them look decent. for our vehicle in case that you don't opt to get the aftermarket tracks and you want to use the original kit part. Now that will complete step 5. So we got our shoes in place and we're good to go there. Now we can move on to step 6. Now this is going to be building up of our turntable and the recoil mechanism and all that stuff there. All this that holds the gun into place. So we're going to start with our turntable, and it is a 2-piece affair. And yeah, there are ejector pin marks all the way around that thing, which you need to clean up. So we do have an alignment notch, and then on the ring itself, I'm just inspecting those notches. I may not have sanded everything out, but there is the a little space there where it goes on to the locator. So that just goes together. You just want to make sure that it sets nice and flat onto the underside of the turntable. And then we'll just go ahead and cement this into place. So we do want to check the fit because this is it's supposed to go in and it's supposed to rotate, and we just want to make sure that it does those things before we get all those other parts attached to it. And as you can see, it kind of doesn't want to actually go down and snap in without a little bit of resistance. So there's something keeping us off there. So I am going to shorten the tabs just a little bit by sanding them, getting them nice and smooth and just slightly shorter. And also inside the upper hull section there, we do have just a little bit of flash, which is kind of holding us off. So we'll just go ahead and trim that out so it'll go in nice and easy. And that should get it for us. We'll just check it again. Should drop straight in. Shouldn't be much of a problem. And then we should be able to rotate it. And that looks good. All right. The next little piece that we're going to put on is this little, it looks like a bracket. But what it really is the piece that will engage the teeth on the quadrant that is on the bottom of the gun carriage. Now, the quadrant is that kind of an arc-shaped piece with all the teeth on it that elevates the gun. And it doesn't really want to go into its half-moon slot. So I'm going to sand it just a little bit. That way it'll get fully seated. If it's not seated all the way, then we may not be able to raise and lower our gun. And if it's too short, well, it's not going to do its job. So we just want to make sure that we get this distance correct and that it's fully seated. And then we'll just go ahead and cement that into place. So we have 2 side assemblies that's going to hold the gun cradle. And as you can see, each piece, or each side, I should say, is made up of 2 pieces. So you've got an outer and an inner, and we need to go ahead and put those together. It has 2 little bitty locator pins that is supposed to help us get it lined up. So I'm just checking the fit here. So this particular side is not complicated. We'll just put it together and add a little bit of cement there to keep everything joined. You just want to make sure that you don't have any voids between the 2 pieces. We'll have to come back later and clean up these edges because they do need some straightening out. Now the left side is constructed pretty much the same way, except that it has a part that hinges and it has to be trapped. And that part that hinges is for the chain ram and loader for the gun. So we need to be careful that we don't glue this little part into place. We need it to actually work. It works kind of like a hinge. So what we're going to do is add a little bit of cement before we put the parts together. And then we'll drop this hinged piece into place there, or the piece that moves back and forth anyway. And then we'll go ahead and put our inner and outer sides together. And we do want to hold it here and make sure that that cement takes hold. And it pays to kind of move the part back and forth to make sure that it's still free. And then continue with gluing the two sides together. We don't want to glue everything together only to find out that we need to pry it all back apart because our little piece that's supposed to swivel back and forth doesn't work. So the next part we're going to put in, and you will have noticed, I'm sure, a lot of sanding marks and everything. So I have cleaned these parts up, basically. And there is a lot of cleanup on this part. But this next part is the rams that go in our elevation cylinders. And I'm just checking the fit on them. Now, the instructions tell us to kind of melt over that little pin that sticks out there, but you really don't need to. At least not on my kit. It's a nice tight fit, and that'll help hold the gun in an elevated position. And they both work the same. So as you can see, they don't flop around. That little loader hinge joint there still works. So we're in good shape here. So now we can turn our attention to the carriage. Now I did do some filling. There were some ejector pin marks that needed to be taken care of. And you really can't see them once the gun's fully assembled, but I went ahead and filled them anyway. And there is a little piece that goes into the center, so we need to pay attention to that when we go to put our carriage together. And it's important to understand the orientation of the holes, because if you don't put this in correctly, then the recoil mechanism is not going to slide into them. So make sure that you pay attention to that. So when it comes to putting these two pieces together, we have two alignment pins, and they just kind of go together. Now the fit is not all that great, so I've had to do some sanding and everything. We just want to try to get that center as flush as possible on the very bottom of it. That way that'll eliminate a whole lot of sanding for us. And for that I'm going to use a clamp just to hold them in alignment. And then we can go ahead and cement them together. And of course I'm just concentrating on the bottom section here. We'll come back and get that little loop over the top after we get everything aligned on the bottom and cemented up. Now with that together, we can go ahead and place that that little plate that's got those two holes in it that goes up inside there. I had to grab my tweezers there. It kind of fell down. So it just sets up against a couple of little locator rails on the inside there. And once I'm satisfied with the fit, we can go ahead and cement those in. Did I say those? I meant that. So anyway, in my haste to put this together, I kind of forgot the travel lock. So it's just a support structure that gets wedged in between these two little brackets that are molded on to the left and right side of the carriage. So I need to kind of spread it apart just a little bit to get it to pop into place. And no harm, no foul, because our cement's not fully set up yet. So we're in good shape there. So we do have this top loop bracket that we need to cement into place. Now the half that's over on the left-hand side was bent in the packaging. If you've seen the kit review, you may remember that. And when it comes to straightening it, I just used my fingers and just pushed it back into place. And it stays. I mean, it does have that distinct kind of a white look from stretched or bent plastic, but that's okay. I'm sure it's going to be fine. It'll be fine. So I don't know if I mentioned that these parts need a lot of cleanup, but if I hadn't, I'll mention it again now. As you can see, the one on the left, I've been cleaning that up, and the one on the right still needs to be cleaned up. It's kind of important to square all of these seams because they're not really shaped the way that they should be, or look the way that you kind of want them to. So with all that sanding and filing and everything, we need to check the fit of these pieces to our turntable. And you will find that those alignment tabs on them are kind of thick and don't really want to go down into the holes there. So, I mean, we could leave things to chance and try to melt them into place with some Tamiya Extra Thin, but I think that's probably a bad idea. Now, this one I've already fit. I sanded them, or actually I used a file on them to thin them out just a little bit and make sure that we've got a good solid connection point there. So the bottom of the carriage does have a rather prominent seam here. we need to fix this. I am just scraping it a little bit and kind of planing down the high side. And we're going to have to do this. Well, I'm kind of doing this with the curved blade to eliminate a lot of cross sanding on the part. We should be able to kind of blend this seam down and it be not noticeable once the model is complete. Now, if the gun is in the elevated position, this is going to be a very visible seam. So we do want to clean all this up really good. And we do have a couple of little cross brackets here up towards the end of it that need to be, well, they need to be cleaned up. Towards the seam, they kind of bulge out a little bit, which is very, very much in common with ITALERI kits. Something about their molding process, they like to do that kind of thing. But that's not what it's supposed to look like. So, I mean, you could cut these off and just build new ones, but I'm just going to use my file here and straighten them out and make them look more presentable. Now, we haven't completed step 6. We haven't put all this together, but there's a part that's missing that I think we need to put on now, and it's in step 7, and that's this front plate. Goes onto our gun carriage there. And then I think we're probably going to need the main part of the gun to help us with putting that part in, because the gun itself is what's maintaining the actual spread of the part, so that when we cement it into place, it's going to fit properly. So the first thing I need to do is check the fit here. It does have those 45-degree bevels so that you don't have any overlap on the corners. Whoops, dropped it. But before I can cement it into place, though, we need to actually fix a little bit of it here, which is that little extension on the side of it there up front. It's kind of holding us off there. As you can see, it kind of, I guess it's from the molding. It should be flush, and it's not. So it's kind of holding our part off. So we need to file that down so that the part fits correctly. And we'll be able to get a good fit with little to no seam there. Now, before we actually cement that plate into place, I need the main gun tube. Because this is going to maintain the distance from the left side to the right side of the gun carriage. Now, there is a problem. These alignment pins keep everything out of alignment. Maybe they're misalignment pins, but I'm just going to cut them off. We'll cut them off, and we're going to sand them down so that they don't interfere with us lining up the two halves of the main portion of our gun. So to help us line up the two halves, there is this ring that attaches to the breech section and joins it to the gun itself. And if you look on the breech end of our gun tube, there is a nice big flat area on one side. Helps us locate this ring, but the ring is a nice tight fit, as you can see there. So I'm just going to push that on, and that's going to help us line up the left and right halves of the main gun tube. And now we can just line up the rest of it, and we can get a nice, fairly flush seam across the bottom of the gun tube. And I was just checking the breech section to make sure that there's nothing interfering with that. So with that lined up, we can go ahead and glue up the gun tube. So we're going to start with the bottom section here and get that cemented into place. Making sure not to glue that breech ring that we put on earlier. So once that dries, we can deal with this terrible seam we got across the top of the gun tube. Ideally, we want these pieces to match up perfectly without any seam visible. Of course, there's going to be a little bit, so we're going to have to sand it, of course. You kind of expect that. I'm just kind of using pressure here to hold the two halves in alignment. And I'm just going to start in the middle of the gun and start cementing it. And hopefully I can get most of that offset and close up all that gap that's there. Now, if we're a little bit crafty, we can actually use our modeling clamps here to apply pressure in the right direction to kind of keep everything not only together, but as aligned, as flush as possible on this top seam. Now, it's going to take more than one clamp to do that, but you know, just take your time to work your way through it and pay attention to where that pressure is going as to whether or not you're pushing it in or out of alignment. Once we get everything set, we're going to set this aside and let it dry for a few minutes before we fool with it again. And while we're at it, there's no reason why we shouldn't go ahead and put the muzzle in together. So even though we're not on that step yet, this is going to need time to dry in order for us to do our sanding and you know, taking care of that seam. So we'll go ahead and just cement this together too. So with the clamps off and everything, we can see that that went fairly well, and we didn't cement that breech ring, so we're okay. I'm just going to kind of leave it on there for now. Now for the whole reason why we put the gun tube together, and that's because when you slide this into place, there are 4 tabs, 2 on either side, right into the rail path that kind of holds the gun. But without the gun being into place, they kind of angle in towards one another, not leaving enough room for the gun to actually slide in. And we need that space set before we glue this plate onto the front of the gun carriage. Yeah, I know, complicated, right? But I think it's important that we get those dimensions correct so that later on we don't have any trouble when we go to install the gun. So with that done and everything set, now the gun itself needs to slide up over top this plate, and there's a lot of room here and a lot of wiggle room where you can actually glue it too high up on the gun carriage itself. So that's why we need to have the gun in place before we secure this plate. Just make sure that you don't get any, to me, extra thin gluing the gun to the carriage. We don't want that yet. Well, actually at all, because it should be able to move freely back and forth with a little bit of pressure. So now with this plate cemented in, we can set this aside. We need to let that go ahead and set up nice and solid before we start fooling with it anymore. So I gave it about an hour, and now we're ready to go ahead and push the gun tube out of the way. And that plate is nice and secure, and we do have some gaps here and a little bit of plastic extending beyond the plate that's not supposed to be there. So we're going to have to clean that up and use some perfect plastic putty here just to fill that little gap that's left at the bottom of the plate. And we do have a gap in that top loop that goes over top of the gun tube. We need to take care of that, get that filled on both ends, And I do fill it down the center as well. And I even added it to the bottom lip there of the gun carriage, which was not an even joint. So yeah, we'll get all this on, and then we'll just clean it all up after it dries. Now with perfect plastic putty, you can use water and a Q-tip to clean most of it up. But there are some areas where you kind of want to sand, which is on this offset down here that we filled. I'm just going to use a sanding stick for that and get that bevel kind of sanded back in, looking like it should, like it's one piece of metal rather than two pieces joined there. Now with all that done, I think we're ready to put this thing together. So a little bit of to me extra thin down into those deep slots for the left and right sides that are going to hold the gun carriage in place and allow us to elevate and depress the gun. So the tabs are, they're different. They've got different spacing from the left side to the right side, so you really can't put them on backwards. Unless you try very hard. So, yeah, we just need to install those. So I'll go ahead and put one side on. And then we can go ahead and put the gun carriage into place because it has those two pins, and it's captured between the right side and left side there. So we'll have to have that into place before we glue up the opposite side. A little bit of to me extra thin will take care of that for us. And then we just need to line up the pins and make sure that we get that trunnion right into the hole it's supposed to go into. And then we'll just press that side down home, make sure everything is fully seated and we don't have any gaps. So we do have a cover that goes on in the front, and we need to go ahead and cement that into place. And it sits on these little ridges on the inside there, the left and right vertical supports. And we just need to press that down and make sure it's got good contact. And that looks good. All right, back to our instructions. We've completed step 6. Finally. We've been working on that the whole time, haven't we? Let's see, step 7. So we did put that little plate on early on, which led us to the gun tube and all that. But now, since that's already done, I think we need to look at these cylinders here next, because those are parts that there's going to need some sanding and some fitting. So what we have here is each one of these have 2 halves. Now, lucky for us, the rams for them are already attached in step 6. So we just need to put these together and make sure that we try to close up that seam and get these aligned as best as we can. There's one little alignment pin down next to the attachment point, but other than that, you're just going to have to line it up with your fingers. Now, once they're sufficiently dry, we can go ahead and clean up any little sprue gates or anything that's left on there. And then, of course, we'll sand those seams down. And if we did a good job putting it together, it shouldn't be any filler that's needed on these. Now, with our cylinders complete, we can go ahead and slide them into place. So we slide them in over top of the rams, and then they go onto that little pin on the side of the gun carriage, just like so. Coincidentally, step 7, which is the part that we're on, it doesn't say anything about melting over the ends of these pins. I guess they expect us to go ahead and do that because there is no other part that attaches to this to keep them in place. So, yeah, we're going to have to do that. So for that, we're going to need a tea light and a little bit of fire here. I'm using a cigarette lighter, but if you want to rub 2 sticks together, that's fine too. So we have our little screwdriver, and we're just going to heat the end of it up, get it nice and hot. And once we've got it hot enough, we'll just go ahead and use that to melt over the ends of these pins. And trying to be careful here not to leave it nice and stringy. If I can get this just to flatten out a little bit. Don't want to do everything. It's kind of sticking to my screwdriver. But you get the idea. And we'll have to melt the other one over too. And if we did everything correctly, it should actually work. And there we go. Oh, that's nice. All right. I am pleased with how that has come out. So we do need to sand the ends of them a little bit there. Kind of dress them up so it doesn't look like a melted blob. So once we get this cleaned up, that part will be done. So, admittedly, it took us a while to get there, but we managed to get this together. Now we still haven't got our seats on and controls and the swing motor and all that other stuff. Oh, and our gun, which we've started on, although we're not really on that step yet. But it does work, so I am pleased with that. There was some doubt there for a little bit. I wasn't quite sure if we was going to get it. And there we are. So the whole idea behind putting the main gun tube together and sliding it up into the carriage was to make sure that the spacing is correct on the carriage before we glued that front piece on, that front plate. Because if we had shorted ourselves and dressed everything up, then we would have to go in and sand and trim out some of the inside there in order to get the gun in. So that was my thought process anyway. I know I probably made things more complicated than it needed to be, but at any rate, it seems to have worked out for us. So everything works good. So we're looking good. All right, so that'll be it for this video. Special thanks to all my subscribers. Because of you guys, I keep making these videos, and I hope that you enjoyed this one. Although we didn't get a lot done, we did a lot of cleanup and all that, and you can kind of expect that with these older ITALERI kits. Don't know about the brand new ones. I need to get my hands on one and see what that looks like. so we can do some comparison here in whether or not they've progressed in their molding technology or they still clinging on to the 1980s, you know. So, all right. Oh, and if you are new to the channel and not a subscriber, I hope I earned your subscription today. So that'll be it. Until I see you guys next Friday, you guys stay safe.